You're listening to a Rock Candy podcast.
Hey Sugar, I'm Erica Michelle. I host a voice diary called Brown Sugar Diaries on the Rock Candy Network, where I spill all the tea about my dating experiences, life lessons, my journey to healing and wholeness, my life as an entrepreneur, student doctor, CEO of a nonprofit, and I give my opinion on the current happenings of the world. You see why I have this voice diary? I got a lot of stuff to talk about. Tune into Brown Sugar Diaries wherever you listen to podcasts, and let's sip on this tea or wine. Your cup, your business, sugar, okay?
Joey Reese and Pickle Boot Shop. Get yourself a pickle. Get yourself a boot. Joey Reese and Pickle Boot Shop. Pickle time is happening. Pickle time. I go down to get some pickles. Bring your grandma and your kids. I go downtown. Bring your grandma and your kids. Boot time. Pickle and boot time. Don't be fickle, get your pickle cider, pop a nickel in your boots. Not a place of ill repute. Bring your grandma and your kids. Come for the pickles, stay for the squids. Stay for the squids. Pickle time. Put that pickle in your pants. Get some booze inside your hands. Put that pickle in your pants. Get some booze inside your hands. 1996, we start this.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to episode 28 of Joe and Reese's Pickle and Boot Shop. I am Joe the Buzzsaw Yerke, and I am joined not by Reese this week. I am joined by my old buddy, old pal, my guy that got me, you didn't get me into podcasting, but you kind of got me into podcasting. So my buddy Cal had me on his show. I kind of got the bug for podcasting with that. And then you had me on your show as a has-been throwaway. Where are they now? The Insiders segment, and we hit it off pretty well. Chris Williams, my journalist, podcast and pal from what was it? What was our thing? Cross Culture Critic.
It was Cross Culture Critic, and then for one episode, it was Jesus Junkyard.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you guys, Reese was unable to record this week. He's going through even more stuff. I know you guys have been involved in our lives. And again, that's going to be a story for him to tell coming up. But again, he is going through some more tough times. And so if you guys could just lift him and his family up again in prayer, that would be fantastic. And if you're one of those people that want to put your thoughts, and not necessarily prayers, but thoughts towards him, take those thoughts and turn them into prayers and put them towards him, because he can use those. And so while he's gone, I thought, who better to have on the show? I mean, we can have other musicians. I mean, Sting wanted to come on. He's been begging me for a while. Amy Grant, ever since me and you went and saw her, she's been hounding me. Slightly stalking. Some other big wigs. Harry Styles, don't know who that is, but he keeps hitting me up. And I thought, you know what? I could sit here and I can interview musicians and actors all day. I mean, dime a dozen, right, Chris? But how often do you get to interview or be interviewed by an amazing journalist and interviewer? And Chris, that's what I think you are. I think you have an amazing talent to do this. And our show is so janky that I thought the listeners need, the Patreons need to hear what a real podcast with a real person asking real questions would sound like. And so I brought you on this show for you to take the reins and be the host of today's show and do all that good stuff. And I'm like, I sent you an email, I sent you a text, and I'm like, you're like, what do we want to talk about? I'm like, I don't know. How about you think of some questions? My normal ones to Reese are like, what are your top 3 desserts? And
That's
then,
a good question. That's a good question. And that's like number 3 on my list. So you're already ahead of me.
yeah. And like 7 minutes later, you sent me back these like amazing questions. I'm like, that's why this guy is good. Like Diane Sawyer and Barbara Walters, when they go to interview somebody, I don't think anywhere on their list is like, what are your top 3 ska albums? But you have like amazing questions. I'm going to turn this over to you. Episode 28. Chris Williams is Pickle and Boot Shop. It's all you.
I'm really so excited for this too. Honestly, because we did our podcast. I think that was like 5 years ago. We started. It was 2017.
Holy cow.
When Cross Culture Critic started, and it wasn't really like, oh, I have this podcast and now Joe's coming on board. I had one episode before I had you on. Like I had one episode, and it was just, it was literally me. It was movie related at first. It was going to be movie and faith related.
Yeah, because you're a movie critic guy.
Yeah. And it was literally, I think the first episode was just me talking about whether I liked Wonder Woman or not, which would have been like fine if it was, because now I do a podcast with an actual other critic, and we'll talk about that stuff for hours. But when it's just one person, that's like a really awful podcast. And so I was like, well, I need to get like some names on here. And we had a mutual friend who was able to pass along your information, and it was great because I think you added like the charisma that I lacked. And, we didn't talk. I don't even think we talked about Wonder Woman, but whatever.
No, we didn't. You asked me, I think, one question regarding the insiders, and 2.5 hours later, I finished talking about that one question.
It was like a June day, and we were sitting in the front seat of your car because the coffee shop we met at was way too noisy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was fun.
And the thing is, you could have come to my house, but I didn't know you then. And I'm like, I don't know if I want this guy at my house. So we could have been sitting in air conditioned in a nice house. Instead, our seats were just sweaty and stuck to, my car seats. And yeah, we did like an entire podcast. If you guys want to look it up, I believe it's still out there. Cross Culture Critic.
Oh,
Is it? Did you take it down?
I don't know. I think when I pulled the money from it, they erased the backlog. No. You know what? I bet it's still on YouTube. All of our episodes, I think, were on YouTube as well. So I think you can find it on there. But it's funny because what I wanted to get into in that show was like talking about. At first, the idea was talk about how faith changes over time and how people who were in these Christian bands may have kind of shifted in their beliefs or weathered some of the storms of life. And our show turned into, poop jokes and, stalking Amy Grant.
I'm a Cancer that way. Everything I turn touches to poop. This show talks about poop and farts all the time.
That's the brand. But, in fact,
Pickle and Poop Shop.
Pickle and Poop Shop. But Reese was on the show once too. I interviewed Reese through a really awful cell phone connection. Like, if you can find that recording, just burn it because it's awful.
If you can find it, don't.
Oh, and then there was also the time you were kind enough to pass around Matt Morginski's contact information.
Yeah, I pass it around to everyone.
I talked to him for like 45 minutes. And then I went to go back and listen to the audio, and the whole thing like crapped out. Like, it captured none of it. So I sent him an email being like, hey, I understand if you don't want to record again, but here's what happened. And I never heard back from him.
Yeah, so, exactly. That's what he does. Because Mojo's a dipstick. And so we make sure that we take the time on this show to bash Mojo. So thanks for nothing. Thanks, Mojo, for coming on. I'm sure you sabotaged the recording somehow. Even back then, you didn't want me succeeding, and you didn't want our show succeeding, and so you sabotaged it back then.
That's what it was. The seeds were planted back then. But what's great is you and Reese are doing the show that I was hoping like, oh, that would be a great show to do. And I think it only works because it's you two who have been in the trenches together, and you can have those honest conversations plus the poop talk.
Yeah.
And so I love to, I'm glad I get to be on here. It kind of brings it full circle. Yeah. I do have a little bone to pick because you did say in one episode, I believe there was an offhanded comment that I might dress like a youth pastor, which, which I told my wife that, and she's just like, well, you do. But that is also the accusation leveled against Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man in the new Spider-Man movies. So I feel like I'm in good company. Oh, I had another bone of contention too. You had me on Average Jerks one time,
Yeah.
and we were talking cologne, and I was like, I use whatever this kind my wife bought me was, and I ran out, and you had mentioned I think it was Burberry cologne.
Yeah. Burberry
And
London.
yeah, and so I went out. I'm like, oh, I need no more cologne. I'll try that out, and I got it, and I was like, that smells pretty good. My wife flipped out, like hated it. Like,
Really?
yes, the first time I wore it, it was like that scene in Anchorman where like Paul Rudd like musks up and everyone's like, "Oh, it's like a used diaper covered in Indian food." And I'm like, "No, it smells really good." She's like, "That's awful. You smell like an old man."
Oh,
and
no.
and what was worse is that my daughter comes walking in the room. What smells like baby powder?
Oh. Oh no. So does she like, because that's like a deep woodsy. That's very woodsy. It has tobacco leaves in it. It's very mahogany woodsy. And
Yeah.
so does your wife like more citrusy, more like clean smells, like the fresh, clean smells?
Yeah, I think she likes the smell that is like 20-year-old.
20-year-old Chaldean.
Makes me feel like, makes me smell like I'm 20 years younger with more hair and less weight.
Like you smell like spilled Zima.
Yeah, it's not so much, it's not cologne, it's camouflage. But
Right. She just like Axe. She likes Axe body spray. It
Yes.
sounds like is what she enjoys.
that's what I got to get. $5.
Just Coast. Just good old Coast. Bar soap. That's a good smell.
There, yeah,
Spring.
yeah. We are Irish.
There you go.
But no, like I'm happy to be here, and I've got some questions.
All right.
Yeah. So one thing I actually wanted to ask you this before, and we never got around to it.
Okay.
So like you said, I'm a film critic, and I don't do journalism anymore. I made my way into marketing, and but I still do film criticism on the side, and I have a newsletter, and so that's been like a huge part of my life. And I was always curious. I think once you mentioned you read a review that said you sounded like a Muppet who had chewed on glass.
No, a Muppet on crack. Yeah.
Crack.
Yeah.
But it kind of got me thinking, did you make a regular habit of reading reviews when you were recording? And like, what was your opinion of critics? Because there's like a tension there between artist and critic that I think both sides tend to have.
Yeah.
And I was curious, like, what was your approach?
No, it's one of those things where, now mind you, I have to paint the picture. I have to set the setting, right? Set the scene. Whereas when we were touring and putting out albums, the internet, and there was no such thing as social media. And the internet was in its infancy, but there was no social media, anything like that. So when we were putting out albums, the reviews that we were reading would come in Billboard magazine, would come in Seven Ball magazine. What was the really good Christian Relevant? Like those types of magazines that you picked up at family bookstores and things like that. That's where we had to read our reviews. So it was, or like newsletters or things like that. That's where we got our reviews. So there were only a handful. You couldn't really, there was no such thing as Twitter. So you couldn't do like hashtag Sinner's Songbook. I mean, let's be honest, you guys. By the time Soundtrack to a Revolution and Sinner's Songbook were out, yes, Facebook was going. Yes, all those different things. But that wasn't my full-time job at that point. So when our first albums and most of our albums were coming out, it was before social media. So yes, I would read them because there weren't many to read. So I would read those reviews and I would take it as kind of constructive criticism. Like if there were things that were legit, I just looked at it, I guess, I want to say like impartial. I would be like, okay, I get what you're saying there because that's what we thought about the album. Like we thought this kind of sounded this way or whatever, or it's more polished than they sound live. Like I understand all that. It was the other things that like when people when critics start criticizing about things that they don't know about. And I know that's an easy statement to say, but I'll clarify it. It would be like if a reporter that was reporting on a sports team said, the reason they didn't win is because the captain of the team didn't have heart. He gave up. Well, you can't quantify that. Like, the team that you were rooting for may have lost the game, but you have no idea. You can't look inside that guy and say, like, he quit. He quit on his team. He gave up. He didn't perform under the bright lights and all that stuff. In the same sense that when we would get the reviews, like the bad reviews, that, it's, oh, Scalleluja, the reason I don't like Scalleluja is because it was a money grab. It was a money grab for a praise and worship album. Like, that's not true. That's not true at all. If you wanted to say that about Scalleluja 2, that would be legit. So Scalleluja 2, it was like we capitalized. Hey, let's put out another praise and worship album. Let's do this, blah, blah, blah. Let's get some sales up. And then we tried all sorts of nonsense. At that point, the W's were pretty big. So we put like a swing song on there. We tried all sorts of different things. And, so we tried different styles, different stuff like that. If you wanted to say that about that album, I get you. But like when a critic would say like, oh, they're doing this as a money grab for the Christian industry, that's 1,000% not true. And the story behind Scalleluja that people, I think, who listen to the podcast and things like that and kind of know insider's history or have followed me, they know that Scalleluja came about because when prior to us writing our own songs, we would practice praise and worship to kind of hone our skills. So we didn't just, our first day of band practice, like, hey, we're the insiders, it's our first day of practice. We didn't just start writing our own stuff. We had no clue what we were doing. So we just took the songs that we were singing at church and we quote unquote scod them up. And then when we got used to kind of the playing that way and we kind of knew each other's strengths and weaknesses and people kind of really started understanding like how they wanted to play their instruments or how they wanted to sing, then we started writing original. So we wrote our original stuff. We put out Motor City Ska. And when Motor City Ska came out, our fans that would hear us play, because the other thing is, once we started playing live shows, we would play our set. So say we had four songs, we'd play 4 songs and we'd have like 10 minutes to fill. And so we'd be like, oh crap, like, let's just play some praise and worship. So we'd be in these like dirty clubs in Detroit and we'd be playing praise and worship songs. So when Motor City Ska came out, there was no praise and worship on there. And our fans were like, hey, we've been coming to your show for a year and a half. We love, I Will Enter His Gates and Lord, I Lift Your Name on High and Awesome God. They were like, we want that. We want to be able to rock out to that in our car or whatever. So Scalleluja was like a love letter to our fans. And it was like giving our fans what they wanted because they didn't get it on Motor City Ska. Lord knows they didn't get what they wanted on Motor City Ska. So we did that album for that. So that was the reason we did Scalleluja, was to give our fans what they wanted, because we were on our first tour across the country. We had our album out and our fans were like, we enjoy Motor City Ska, but why aren't, we really love these songs. Why aren't they on here? And so that's why we did it. And so when we would read like a review, like, oh, the insiders are doing a money grab because, Hillsong United and like all these like big praise and worship bands are making tons of money, Delirious, all this. You guys are just capitalizing on that. And that wasn't the case. So if I read a review like that, that would drive me nuts because you're not able to rebuttal,
Sure.
and you're not able to do that. And at no point does that critic ever call you. So like critics don't speak to the people who they critique. They just give their opinion. And if they were simply basing their opinion on the material at hand, I'll give them that. But when they start to go beyond that scope and think, and they start to make reviews and critiques on what the person may have been thinking at that time and why they did it. And this, man, just judge the music. Like, is it a good ska album or not? Were there songs that were catchy or not? If there were no catchy songs, if there was nothing on there you like, go ahead and rip it to shreds. But don't say like, oh, I think when they wrote it, they were thinking this and they wanted to go this style and and it was a money. That's where I, as far as like reviews and stuff like that, critics, I wasn't down with those too much.
And I think as a critic, that would be like it should be about the art. And even with film, like, you can have people, make comments like, "Oh, it's just another Marvel cash grab," or it's, he's just phoning this one. Well, you don't know what goes into,
Right.
these people's performances, or the fact that maybe a director did take a script that they, weren't too enthusiastic about, but that was because that was the job that paid, and maybe they actually did a pretty good job with that. But you're gonna, you're gonna ding, Steven Spielberg because he makes, Ready Player One, when it's like, well, I would make Ready Player One for Ready Player One money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always, the one that I always fight to the death on, and I feel like I'm the only one, I feel like I'm standing, by myself trying to hold back the ocean, is the criticism for the last Star Wars movie. Because
okay.
yeah, and the reason I defend it is because think if you were the person they asked to write that movie, and you had to take 8 other movies where some people in those movies went in wacky directions, and you had to take 8 other, and I mean, I know how many, there's probably not 8 writers. There were 8 prior movies, and let's just say there were 6 other writers. But you had to take all those people's ideas, all the ways that they went for one movie. Like maybe a writer wrote this movie, another person wrote that movie, and they kind of all went in different directions. And you had the task of taking this intellectual property that has spanned generations, that your children know, all the way up to my dad, saw that movie when it was released. And you had to take all those storylines, all those characters, all that emotion, all that everything, and tie it all together, tie up all those loose ends in one film, because between Force Awakens, and you're the movie critic, so correct me if I'm wrong and put me in my place.
I will.
Yeah, and put me in my place. But between The Force Awakens, what was the next one? Force Awakens, Rises of Sith?
No, Force Awakens, and then the very best Star Wars movie ever made, The Last Jedi.
The Last Jedi. And then what was the last one?
Rise of Skywalker.
Rise of Skywalker. So Force Awakens comes out, and I think it's amazing. I really love that, and I'm like, I can't wait to see where it goes. Then the next one comes out, and you're like, wait a second, what's going on? Because I don't think the same person wrote both of them. No. And then you're like, okay, well, where's this writer taking it? And he starts to take it in a different direction. And then you're like, wait, so is Finn and Rey gonna hook up, or is Finn and this Asian girl gonna be a couple, or is Finn and the X-Wing fighter guy, is there gonna be a gay thing there? Like, I don't know where in the second movie like that all started to go. And then they hire the guy to write the last one, The Rise of Skywalker, and he's got to somehow bring all that back together and make it so that these 8 movies can kind of all be put to bed. So that...
Yeah, I'm going to jump in here. I realize we're meandering off the topic, and your podcast never does that.
No,
I'm sorry. Like,
completely linear.
No, like, okay. I would say it was J.J. Abrams wrote Force Awakens and then came back for Rise of Skywalker. Rian Johnson did Last Jedi. And I think, there's a case to be made that J.J. Abrams wrote Force Awakens, kind of assuming he was going to have a guiding hand in the entire trilogy. So he seeded stuff in there that he wanted to pay off at the end. And that
Sure.
would be,
Yeah.
Rey's parentage makes a lot, has a lot of weight to it. Well, Ryan Johnson, who I love every movie he's made. I absolutely adore Knives Out. He comes in and says, we're going to do something different, and we're going to make it. I'm going to play around with what you expect from a Star Wars movie. And we're going to say that, you expect Rey's parents to be these big mythic figures in Star Wars legacy. No, she's a nobody. And the point of that movie is anybody can be a Jedi. Anyone can be a hero. You think at the end, Luke Skywalker is going to be this huge hero who's going to come up and have all this wisdom, but he's bitter and he's angry because something happened in his past. And I know a lot of people don't like that movie. I love that movie. But I think the key is that was the next step in the story. So that was the choice that was made, not just by Ryan Johnson, but agreed to by Lucasfilm to say, this is the next step in Star Wars canon. And J.J. Abrams comes back, and there's a whole mess of people who were supposed to direct that third movie, got fired, moved on, and then J.J. Abrams was brought back. Carrie Fisher was going to have a huge role. She died. So I don't envy his task. But what he did that really kind of pissed me off was throw out the most interesting stuff in Last Jedi, which is that Rey's parents are nobodies, to say, no, she's actually a Palpatine. Oh, by the way, Luke, he's better in this one. He's a little more like you remember. And I feel like it's not so much the fault of J.J. Abrams, who has made a lot of movies and TV shows that I really like. It's the fault that no one at Lucasfilm thought when they started making these movies, we should have a plan for where this is all going.
Yes.
Like right. Instead, it was improv. It was kind of improv. And the rule of improv is yes, and J.J. Abrams comes back for this third entry and it's no, but, it's, I'm not going to play with what was set up in the second film. I'm just going to try and, reverse engineer everything to fit what my original idea was. You look at Marvel, everything is meticulously planned out.
Correct.
And I think what I was getting to too with your comment about people who might be criticizing Insiders doing a worship album for the money, which I think if I'm correct, you guys were actually doing that before, like Hillsong was making it big, or Chris Tomlin was just a sparkle in his dad's eye or something like that.
Right.
But you look at someone like Ryan Coogler, a director who I really like, and he starts off with this movie called Fruitvale Station, starring Michael B. Jordan, that is this very a true to life account of a young black man who was killed in Los Angeles. And it's not a great movie, but I really enjoyed it. I thought it had a good performance, and it's a piece of art that I'm like, oh, this says there's a talent to be reckoned with. Well, I remember getting really nervous when the director of this film that I really liked announces his next film is going to be a Rocky movie, and he went on to do Creed, which I was skeptical of, and then I'm like, oh no, Rocky, Creed is the second best movie in this whole saga. I love Creed; it is great. But what else can he do? I want him to have a voice, and he's announced to do Black Panther, which I know we disagree, and you don't like that one as much as I do.
No,
but I really like Black Panther, and it would be very easy to look at Ryan Coogler doing that and say, oh, he's just doing it for the Marvel money. He's just this is it. He's sold out, which we're 90s kids. It's the worst thing you could do is sell out. But
right.
But I look at that movie and I'm like, well, no, he's still telling a story that is very personal to him. It deals with themes that are apparent in all of his work. He's delivering quality filmmaking. I mean, you can like the result or not like the result, but I'm like, I don't think he hasn't invested everything in that. And I don't understand how you could do something like singing and songwriting, which I think just requires a vulnerability that I can't understand. Like when I write, I get to hide behind levels of snark and, intellectualism. But like songwriting and singing, like you are putting yourself out there. And I can't imagine, I'm sure I know a lot of people just do it for the paycheck, but especially if I don't know that you get into Christian music to be rich, even if you're doing it,
Right.
worship albums. So
Right.
that would definitely be an unfair criticism, but it's also, I don't know. It's not looking at the art at that point. It's judging intent.
Right.
Um,
So
and
yes. So full circle. That's kind of what I'm talking
yeah,
about. Is that's what used to drive me nuts in the reviews. Is just like you said, judging intent, judging all this other stuff, rather than just judging the material. And I could take it. Again, I think the critique on me that Joe Yerke comes back on, I believe it was Sinner's Songbook. Joe Yerke comes back and he sounds like a Muppet on crack. I can laugh at that because we have fans and there's people that enjoy the Insiders because my voice sounds like how it does. I don't know why, but people enjoy my voice, and they buy our albums.
it's
So
worked for you.
yeah, it's worked for me. So that doesn't bother me. Like those are the criticisms that I can like laugh about. The ones, like I said, the ones that cut are the ones that like they think why we did something like that. Nowadays, I really don't know if I was an 18, 19-year-old kid who just put out an album and everybody who has Twitter and everybody who has Facebook or whatever platform they have, and then like all these online, just like online zines and stuff like that, critiquing an album. I don't know if I could handle that. I mean, I think that's something. I think that's why we see, and again, this show always goes in a million directions, and that's why I always enjoy doing interviews with you, and the banter that we have, because it does go in a million directions. But I think that is why kids today are anxiety through the roof, panic attacks through the roof. I mean, 12-year-olds on Xanax, things like that, because they have these phones, which are like the infinity gauntlet. And you give a 12-year-old, a 13, 14, 15, 16-year-old this power in this phone where they can't detach themselves. When we were kids, if you had the bully at school, and you went home at the end of the day and your parents hugged you and you ate lunch and you talked about this bully and they gave you advice on how to work with the bully, or you had a weekend where you could get away, and then summer break came around and you were 3 months away from the bully, and hopefully when you went back to school, he learned something or she learned something and grew as a person. Now, like, kids can't disconnect from that. So the person that they don't like at school, they doesn't like them online. And you can say a lot nastier things to someone online than you can to their face. And then it's nonstop. You leave school and you're still on Twitter, you're still on Snapchat, you're still on all that stuff, and you can't disconnect. So putting that with like a 17, 18-year-old, 19-year-old who's writing like songs from the heart and just trying to, like, you're not like, you're still so green. You've never done this before. You're not like a grizzled songwriter. And so you do this and you put it out there. I think nowadays, if I was, 17, 18, 19 years old and I'm writing music and it's coming back just trashed, like, I don't know. It might be hard to like be like, yeah, guys, I think we should continue. Like,
No, I get that. Like, that's the age when you don't want anyone looking at you as it is. Like,
yeah,
I'm a very awkward 42-year-old, but I was a very awkward like 16-year-old. I can't imagine if everything I wrote, for instance, was broadcast. Like, okay, here's a great example. So, when I was in high school, we had journals, and if you were angry or frustrated about anything, you would pull out your little journal, take a pen, and you'd scribble it in, and that was it. It was done.
Okay.
The only audience was yourself or your sibling who decided to go rifle through it. Well, when I turned 20, or not turned 20, but when I was in my 20s, gosh, I'm aging myself here, but I had a Zanga.
I remember
and
Zanga.
yeah, and it was basically, it was LiveJournal. It was blogging before blogging became, corporatized and passe and all that. But it was, you could write whatever you wanted and it would go out to the rest of the world. So it was also social media before there was social media. And I look back, I'm the only one who has access to my old Zanga, and I do have it. And I will look
Really?
at it from time to time, and I'm like, what the hell was I thinking? Like, I remember this girl, I was dating her for a bit, and she was like one of my first steady, like serious, like I was really into her. We would stay up till 3 in the morning talking on the phone, one of those first times. And
Mm,
she did, the
tell us
classic.
more. Tell us
Yeah,
more,
did the
Chris.
well, she did the,
Details.
it wasn't that, it was such a, Christian relationship that she was one of those people, like, I went to go hold her hand, and she's like, "I don't know if that's something I'm allowed to do," and, you know,
She's like, I read the book Kissing Dating
I
Goodbye.
did
And I
yeah.
can't
And, like, I remember she went on a trip, like a missions trip or something, and, she wanted to give me, like, chocolates to think of her, but she didn't give me kisses, Hershey's Kisses. She gave me Hershey's Hugs, uh,
Oh.
because that was, like,
Better than
the
Hershey
barrier.
squirts.
And now we're back to this show.
You're
Um,
starting to get too heady. You're
yeah,
starting to
yeah.
get way too up there for our listener level.
But she, I'm about to bring it down. Don't worry. But so she goes on a missions trip. She comes back and realizes she's not interested in dating, and more specifically, she's not interested in dating me.
Okay.
Which, whatever, I'm 42 years old. I'm married. I have 2 kids. Yeah, water under the bridge there.
Yeah.
But at 25 years old, that pissed me off, and I didn't know how to process that at that point, because I was a Baptist, so I was a late bloomer to this whole dating thing. So I'm like, what do I do with this, like, pissed off, angry feeling I have toward her? Oh,
Easy. Zenga about it.
yeah, exactly, exactly. And
You just type that venom out.
oh, it was, yeah, yeah. And what I had forgotten was that one of her friends had subscribed to my Zanga, and
Oh.
so that got back to her,
What's
and
funny, what you don't realize is that was the first time in recorded history that social media, led to a oops.
I was a pioneer. I
Yeah,
was
yours was the first where you were like, "Uh-oh, something I put on there, somebody else saw and reported
yeah.
it to somebody else."
And it was like, I look back and it was, oh man, it was a pissed off, angry. I think now that I think about it, I think Reese wrote a song, like a breakup song, on one of the Brave Saint Saturn albums.
Uh-huh.
And it's like really bitter and angry. And I think I included lyrics from that in there.
Yeah.
Um, so that didn't go over well either. But I've gone back and I've stumbled on that before, and I'm like, oh shit, who was this guy? Like, that was really bad. Like, that's like incel behavior.
Oh,
Like,
that's
like,
funny.
but I was at a point where I didn't know how to, the rules were still being written about what you could publish online, what was appropriate. I would never have said any of that to her face. But, the thing about electronic communication is you don't have to look people in the eye. And, when you're a kid at school and you're bullying someone, and you're in the class, you at least have to look them in the eye, or if you hit them, you can see that you hurt them.
Yeah.
But when you're on Facebook or Twitter, everyone is a 0 and a 1, and usually it's not even their real name or even their real picture, and you can just, it
Destroy 'em.
dehumanizes. Yeah,
Yeah.
and like I've seen that even as a critic. I've seen that. Like, I came of age in the days of Ain't It Cool News. There's actually a podcast about that whole history now, which was like one of the first online movie review sites, and it like had a huge influence on online film criticism. But like, they would just be nasty. I remember, there was the whole thing when George Lucas did the prequels, and
Yeah.
that was the height of Ain't It Cool News, and they're making comments that he had, quote, raped their childhood because the prequels were still bad, or like Batman and Robin comes out, and Batman and Robin's an awful movie, but they were writing about how Joel Schumacher should be taken in the streets and stoned and killed because he made a bad Batman movie.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's ugly, and yet what they learned over time is also that ugliness got people reading. and that got clicks. So they would write more of that and more of that. And that kind of led to why the internet is such a hellscape today.
Yeah.
Which it kind of goes back to this thing I have with critics, this kind of frustration I have with some, and I am sure it happens in the movie or the music industry too. I feel like there are some critics who don't like the art form they're reviewing anymore. Like, they think they're above it. Like, they're smarter than it. They're smarter than the artists. They're or they don't even like. I've talked to some critics where I'm like, do you even like going to the movies? Like, you're miserable about everything that's put out.
Sure.
And like, I got into this because C.S. Lewis says the consummation of enjoying something is praising it, right? Like, so that's why I got into film criticism. And sometimes it's cathartic to talk about a bad movie, but you never get mean about it, and you never think you're above the work or that you can judge the intent of that artist. Like,
Sure.
it's the old Ratatouille thing, like the critic at the end saying, we realize that most of the art that we pan is worth so much more than the piece we're writing to pan it, right? Like, and I know I butchered that quote, but just go rant Ratatouille. It is a great movie.
The mouse one, right?
The mouse one.
The
The mouse one. Yeah, mouse one.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
No, I completely agree with you, because I think all of us, there's something in our lives where, for me, again, taking this, in a different direction almost, but still touching on the same topic. When you get to that point, like for me, I love cooking. I love grilling. I love smoking meat.
Mm-hmm.
So I've taken that love to where when I first got into it, and I first got into like the smoking of meats end of it, you're trying to learn. And so you learn something from one person, you learn something from another person, and then all of a sudden you start producing like really good products. And it got to be where like, I could do this really well, and I think I could do this really well, and I think I did this really well. And then you get to the point where you start critiquing other people's barbecue.
Yeah.
And there's times where I have to stop myself. Like, my buddies will get like a pellet smoker. And when you're like a hardcore smoker, a pellet grill is considered, like, is always joked as like the man's easy bake oven, like the male version of the easy bake oven. And so I joke with my friends who go out and buy Traegers and do those things. And I joke with them about it. And sometimes I find myself getting like worked up about it. Like when they're talking about stuff and they're like, no, you got to do that. And I'm like, dude, you have a pellet smoker. Like, what are you talking about? And then I have to sit back and I have to say, you know what? And as soon as I start to feel myself kind of like getting amped up about it, I always got to be like, but you know what? As long as you're cooking, as long as you're having fun, and as long as the people who you're cooking for are enjoying that food, be blessed. Praise God. I'm glad that you're home with your family. I'm glad you're smoking those ribs on an easy bake oven and you guys are enjoying a great meal together, because that's what your kids are going to remember. Your kids are going to grow up and think, my dad makes the best ribs. And so, what's that?
Oh, then they're going to offer you something like, oh, yeah, great, have some. Oh, hell no.
Yeah, no, I ain't eating that crap. Yeah. And my buddy did do that. Like, he has his pellet smoker and he talks about it and he brings it in. He's like, hey, I saved you a couple of bones from a rack of ribs. And he's like, I want your honest opinion. I'm like, no, you don't. And he's like, no, I want your honest opinion. And I bit into him and I'm like, they're tender and stuff like that, but they don't taste like smoked ribs. They taste like oven ribs. And so, I gave him my honest opinion. But that's my thing, is I think, yes, when the critic does become, they feel like what the reason that they're critiquing it is because they know what's best. They know how this movie should have been done. They know how this person should have portrayed this character. At that point, it's like, come on, I don't really like that. And on top of that, it's usually when it comes down to what's the big like awards and stuff like that for the movie industry, like Academy Awards or
the Oscars.
And the Oscars. Is the Academy Award what you're given at the Oscars?
You're given an Oscar. They are the Academy Award. So it's like the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences.
Okay, so I just had it flipped.
Yeah.
But you go to the Academy Awards and you're given an Oscar. Those
Yes.
aren't two separate award.
Exactly.
Okay.
Same show.
All
Yep.
right. So like, but the thing is when the movies that go up for that are never movies that like I want to see. You know, it's not the movies that I love. What, you know, a Marvel movie's never going to be up for that. You know, it's The English Patient. It's, you know, some French film, you know, some whole film that takes place in a 16th century period piece where the entire film is just two people in a carriage talking. Like those are the films that like get nominated for all these awards, and that's what I think I think a critic thinks this movie is amazing, and I'm like, but it made, you know, $10 million. Look at what everybody enjoys going to see. Why don't those movies win awards? But like the critics think that they know it's best, and like, oh no, this little picture here, and but I don't know. Do you see what I'm saying?
I see what you're saying. Couple things on that though is critics don't vote for the Academy Awards. That's all like the people who work in the industry.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like actors and directors. They're voting for it.
Like, why don't Marvel movies go up for that?
Oh, you know what though? There was a Marvel movie nominated for Best Picture. It was Black Panther.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Here's the thing I think with it. I think part of it is that the reason for these award shows and the reason I would say like a critic exists is to bring attention to something that other people might pass by, right? So what would be the biggest like band in the world right now?
Oh, I'm probably not the person to ask that because
Okay,
I
okay.
just listen to all my old stuff. But I mean, but man, I honestly say like Post Malone. Like, let's go with like a
Okay.
rapper. So Post Malone.
Okay. So Post Malone doesn't need your help talking him up, right? As a musician, he's going to sell his albums. He's going to be fine. But think of that band that just blew you away. And you're like, no one knows about these people. They're this little band I saw in a bar, but they are fantastic. And I want to tell everyone about them. You know, so that's kind of the role as a critic. Marvel's going to be okay. And I write reviews of Marvel movies, and I've given most of them very positive reviews. But like my passion for that is to say, you know, here's this thing that you're missing out on that's going to get passed by. And sure, give your $10 to go see Spider-Man or Batman or something. But don't overlook this because I think this is a really unique experience and it's really cool. But I also think the reason critics probably tend to side more with those movies that a lot of the mainstream is kind of passing by is critics have usually seen everything, right? And the more you see, the more you start to get a feel for, oh, this works. This is different. I've seen everything out there. I haven't quite seen this before. And so they're going to talk up those movies. I'm trying to look at what the Best Picture nominees are this year. To see if there's one like, well, okay, but like this year is weird because there's also Dune and West Side Story and Nightmare Alley, which are all very big movies. But like my favorite movie of the year was a movie called Mask that no one saw.
Mask. Wasn't that with Cher?
No, it was with Jim Carrey actually.
Oh yeah.
But no, Mass, MASS, and it was about. Excuse me, take a drink of my water here. It was about two families that they had both lost children in a school shooting. And it was a dramatic movie, and it's basically one of the families, their son was the shooter. The other family, their son was one of the victims.
Dear God.
And
I've never even heard of this movie.
It's a tiny movie, and it is, these two families just meet in the basement of a church just to talk. And it's not like they're trying to get an apology. It's not like they're trying to, settle something. It's just, we need to talk about what happened and figure out how it happened. And it's just this very talky, quiet movie that hits on some very deep themes. And to me, I talk that movie up because I'm like, Spider-Man No Way Home was already going to come out of the gate and it was going to, tear up the office and everything. no one was going to hear about Mass. No one was going to see Mass. And so
Yeah,
if I
nobody
can
did.
flood people's feed, no one did.
Yeah.
If I can flood people's feeds with that, that's great. Because that is something I haven't seen before. And after seeing, every variation of movies, I'm like, I haven't seen anything that opens up the conversation this way about this subject.
I mean, shoot, you've already sold me. I'm going to look for it and see where I can watch it.
It's good. It's really good. But like, you have to also realize too, like, I'm not going to recommend Mass to my parents. Like, that's not something they're going to enjoy.
Yeah.
Like if it's someone who wants a good, fun night at the movies, I'm going to tell them, go see Spider-Man, go see Nightmare Alley, go see something like that. But, at the end of the day, I think critics are just exposed to so much that it's kind of like, yeah, I could recommend the latest comic book movie to you, but you're already going to go see that. Let's point.
No, I understand. I understand that. That sheds light on a critic's. That's an angle that I've never thought of. So
yeah, and you probably do it with music. Like I'm sure, like as a like it's just as you become more of a fan of something, your tastes are going to change. You're going to move past the vegetable stage, and you're going to be like, oh no, this is what you've been listening to. Yeah, VeggieTales. What you've been eating is McDonald's. What you've been listening to is McDonald's. I'm gonna give you the filet mignon. Like this is the real deal. I think criticism kind of works very similar to fandom.
All right. Well, I think we've beat critics into the ground, and I think we're almost at the hour mark.
I think we did. I think we rambled successfully.
Yeah, I think we did pretty good off of one question. That's how this thing goes. And we only talked about poop for a little bit of it.
Just a little bit. Just a little bit. It just kind of prairie dogged out for a little bit.
It did. It poked its head out and then sucked back in. Good one.
There we go.
Chris, fantastic. So you guys, well, this is it. We're gonna call it a day right here at the hour mark, and hopefully Chris is gonna join me for another hour. Hopefully we'll be able to get something else out, and it won't just be an hour of silence that you're gonna hear from now on. So, you guys, thanks for tuning in on this one, and enjoy yourselves. We'll see you.
See ya.
For more shows like this one, visit rockcandyrecordings.com.